Welcome to my channel, guys. This time we're going to do a shadow audit with Kristian, and we're going to be analyzing the Beadle project from that was on Code Hogs. And this way we're going to see how Kristian it's approaching the audit, how the first steps look like, and yeah, we will learn from him. So Kristian, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yep. Hello, I am Kristian, a security researcher. I've been doing contests for the past 6 months. You can find me at KrisaPost1 on Twitter. I post content regularly there.
Thank you. So you know, guys, this contest was like the first or one of the first on Code Hogs, and yeah, it was very interesting. There were a lot of issues, and Kristian performed really well, one of the best actually. So there's no better person to go through this with than him. So yeah, let's go.
Yeah, so when I open a code base like this, which is of medium size, I guess, I try and first see the biggest file so I can essentially create some sort of a mind map of complexity in my head. I try and visualize what sort of like issues in understanding the code I might have. So I see what each file has before like jumping in whatever. And very easily I spot the lender file is essentially the biggest one. It has the most complex code in it. It has a lot of strange events, a lot of logic that I don't understand at the very beginning. So I definitely know that I might have the most success in finding stuff here. But I try and start from smaller files, like let's say fees and staking and Beadle, just because they're much smaller in complexity and then what could go wrong. So I go from them. From the beginning, we see that Beadle.so is essentially a small. It's just overwriting the base interfaces from OpenZeppelin, so it doesn't hold anything special in it. We can even not look at it that much because it doesn't have any moving parts that can be messed up by the people who wrote the contract in any way, just because the code is just copied. It's just overwriting like abstract functions, so we don't need to care about it that much. We can even like close it so we don't get like overrun by it. Additionally, then another small file is the fees contract, which is just a small Uniswap integration. It's swapping tokens to ETH, so to Wi-Fi actually. So we can definitely dissect it first. It's not very complex. It only has one function, and it's using the a constant Uniswap swap router. A thing that I always do with addresses, just because I'm a little paranoid with them, is I always check them against the actual deployed contracts by the specific protocol. All of them have like a page with addresses. You can simply check against them and see whether this is the actual address that is used at this point. Check if it's like not being upgraded or something, just in case. Sell profits is the sole function of the contract. We can see that it's essentially doing a Uniswap integration, and there is a few issues that I see from like just looking at it that most people have already been familiarized with through like reading the very high duplication reports on Audit. Essentially, the first things I see when I look at it is that the fee pool is essentially hard-coded to the 3% fee rate. And also I see that the deadline is hard-coded to block timestamp, which isn't a valid deadline that will work. We can also see that there isn't any proper slippage, I guess, and the square root limit x96, which is the maximum or like the lowest price at which the tokens are going to be swapped at, is also 0. So it's also not a set parameter. So we've got like 4 issues just by looking at it and knowing those basic Uniswap issues.
So, Christian, so that means that every time we see a deadline parameter that is defined as block timestamp, we most likely will be able to raise an issue.
Yes, because block timestamp is always the timestamp at which the transaction gets mined. So it's not going to be an effective deadline, and it's going to be able to be executed at any point in time.
Okay, I see. It can be manipulated, I guess, as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very unsafe swap, I guess. We also see that it's like just being swapped. And yeah, I don't see, like, we can probably dive deeper into it, but there is a lot of very high duplication issues that can be found in this function. There's probably even more from just looking at it. Another thing is I don't see any approval of the Uniswap contract to spend the tokens, because we are initiating the swap, but we're not approving the contract of the tokens. So how is it going to do the swap? That's the other thing. But all of those issues are stuff that you can definitely learn very fast on by researching on Solidit.
So
But yeah,
you mean that in general, when you start reading the code, then there are some things that you double check on Solidity to make sure if okay, I can see that this is being done, this function is executed, or we're doing the transfer. Do you double check in Solidity to make sure that anything related to that function has been raised? Like for instance, something that I did last week was I was going through some new function like meta transactions and things like that I was not aware of. So basically I went to Solidit and I added the name of that function to make sure to see if there was something raised to that or if there are any issues around that. Is it something that you do as well?
not really. I mostly try and do the studying before any contests,
Okay.
like any particular thing. I simply try and think about a topic that I wanna research, and I then like toggle the filters on the site, and I simply read the issues. I don't really like try and match stuff off of contracts. I guess this is something you can do, but I don't know, like a particularly good use case, because most people would also know about that issue because it's very easily duplicatable, I guess. It's essentially a framework of finding issues that other people find, and I don't know if we like need to find the same stuff. Like we need to try and find very unique stuff in contests and not like very duplicatable things.
Yeah, you don't lose much time in the very visible scenarios like this. Because yeah, I remember I did raise that as well, the slippage thing, but I didn't get much from that for sure. It was a
I
high
believe,
though, and yet it was not much rewarded.
yeah, I believe it paid less than a cent actually.
Yeah, a few cents. Yeah.
It isn't worth anybody's time to like try and write that out. There is no point with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I believe we're kind of fine with this function. We can like return back to it when we know the whole picture of the whole protocol. But we kind of like saw the first things that come to mind when like looking at it essentially. We can move on to the bigger contract, not the biggest, but like the bigger one, the staking contract. From the name, we can guess that it's probably about some sort of token staking. We see some vote implementation here, and some sort of reward mechanism, I guess. This looks like a reward mechanism. So we can like start from the very beginning of the contract. We see the fee distribution interface, so we know that the staking contract is somehow integrated with the fees contract that we just looked at. Then we see that the staking contract is keeps some sort of a balance of reward tokens. It also keeps some sort of an index, which is probably a reward index mechanism. We also see some different variables that are being set initially. Uh, then we see how deposit works. A red flag here is that it isn't following the checks effects interactions pattern, because it's taking tokens from you before actually updating anything. This may arise to some issue, but we are not sure of it at this point, so we can keep it in mind, or maybe even like add some comment and know that this might be some sort of a moving part for some exploit down the line. Then we
Is
go
it,
back, go down.
Christian, is it something that you like to do to, like, do you use the audit tags there, or do you add some comments in the code, or you add the comments aside or something?
I usually use a lot of audit tags. Like I make the code almost unrecognizable. Yeah,
Yeah, similar
yeah. I
for
just
me.
don't want to pollute this version of the code
Yeah,
base.
that's,
Uh, then we can like move on down to the withdraw function. We can see that it's updating some sort of a virtual balance for the user, but it's updating it before that, and then it's transferring the tokens. This seems to be right at this point, but it may still allow us to do some stuff just because we can probably change the deposit and the withdrawal in some way, but we're not sure of it at this point. Uh, then we can go down to claim, which is also not following the checks effects interactions pattern. I mean, it's updating it for the user, but then it's transferring tokens and then it's doing some other updates. It's also using the actual balance of the user, which is not a very good thing, I believe.
yeah, I
Um,
think that might be influence on the, how was that, the fees on tokens, something like that, if I remember properly. Like sometimes it's used the balance before and balance after to make sure you get the right approach, or I'm just making this up. I don't know.
I'm not really sure because it was quite a long time ago, so I don't really remember much of the code. Yeah,
Okay.
that's the good thing. Like, it seems kind of new.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why it's nice to go through this again. Maybe, who knows, maybe we find something new.
Yeah, and then we look at the update function, which is, I suppose, for when new tokens enter the staking mechanism, because the idea of staking is to make users lock up tokens in a specific contract and to reward them for a specific duration of staking, essentially. And the first line of the function is a red flag because it's using a normal, like the actual balance of the contract, instead of using some sort of a virtual balance that gets set when the contract gets tokens from another part of the protocol. This is definitely something very influential.
So when
We
you
can
say that it's a red flag, do you mean that that's from your point of view that there will be an issue there, or it's something that you mark to then go back, test it, and make sure that it's there's some kind of issue there?
Uh, I definitely see it as something that I'll need to expand upon, and I definitely return to it right after, and try and piece up a series of calls or data mutations, so I can like try and break it in some way. Because the end goal is to simply get some unintended behavior, and this is essentially allowing us to, let's say, donate tokens to the contract or do something else in order to break the contract in some way. It doesn't always need to be to extract value from it, like to steal money from it. It can be, I don't know, like locking funds or messing up some mechanism. We just need to break something, make it not work as intended. That's the main goal. So this definitely can allow us to do that. Then right below that balance check, we see that we're checking for whether the balance is sub-zero, which means that we can probably donate a small amount of funds to the protocol just so that we can enter this. Again, I don't know whether something happens if we do that. It's just kind of suspicious. Then again, we check the actual balance of the protocol in terms of WEF. and we don't actually try and keep some sort of a virtual balance, which is definitely an issue. It's actually then checking whether the actual balance is bigger than the virtual balance. Um, and then if it is, it's trying to then take the difference and do something, which is, I guess, give money to the stakers if there is a difference. Um, so maybe something that can be done here is for someone to stake right before this sort of update and extract value from it. And yeah, when we see that deposit is has no mechanism to allow make you wait or something before that, you can very easily probably do it and extract value from the staking contract as if you were staking all along, I guess. Maybe this is something that can be done. Um, we can see that the formula is essentially multiplying the difference in balance by 1e18, just so we can have some uh, precision, and then we are dividing by the total supply. Something that can be problematic here is for the staking token. Okay, so we can, so it's assuming that the token here is 18 decimals. This may be an issue if the token is less or more, but again, this is probably a very easy issue to spot, so don't bother doing it if it is. Then it's checking whether there is new value that was added to the protocol and whether it can be shared among all people, or wait, the ratio works this way. Yeah, so the difference times the total supply. So yeah, it's checking for whether the tokens that are present in the contract, like the state tokens in the contract, can be divided by it. So if we have 50 stake tokens in the contract and there is a difference of 49, we will not be able to give at least one token to each user. So we won't upgrade the ratio, I guess, and it will not proceed to updating this, which may be an issue if we try and donate small amounts, which are smaller than the total supply of tokens staked. This may also be an issue if like 0.9 WEF enters into the protocol, which is not a small amount of money, and it gets divided by the total supply, which is, how much is that? I'm not sure if this is going to work as a scenario, but maybe if a smaller amount enters, the ratio is not going to be updated. But again, this is just initial thoughts, and I'm not really sure if anything is actually able to happen. I'm just trying to think in some ways when I see the code. Then we see update for, which is a personalized update function, which updates the balance of each user. We see that it's first calling update, and then it's checking the balance of the user. It's checking whether they have staked, and then it's giving them more claimable tokens based on when they supplied tokens. So maybe the theory of us being able to extract value from the protocol if we stake right before some sort of token funding round is probably correct, just because it's not checking for any time parameter, but it's only checking for whether we have staked before that money entered the protocol. So this is definitely MVable. I believe so. Yeah, it's checking the delta, and then it's adding the share. Then what is this doing? This is only updating the supply index of the user. Yeah, yeah. Index. Where did we call this function? Update for, so it's called before the deposit of the user. So it's first taking those tokens, and then it's updating. A thing that arises actually is that first it's updating the balance of the contract like it gets more tokens for the contract, but the issue is that here, let's say that the contract gets another 50 tokens, uh, but the user hasn't staked yet, and so their index hasn't been updated. They haven't staked um, in the contract by like how it needs to be initialized, and then it's actually, yeah. So first the tokens enter here, then we're calling the update. But if there are any upstanding tokens that need to be accounted for, we're going to come here and we are also going to count the user share in the ratio, which is probably going to lock some tokens actually. Yeah, and if something like that happens, I'll definitely just write some sort of audit tag here. So, and the first thing I will do in such a case is to simply open the tests and see what kind of tests are present for the specific contract. But I see that there isn't any test case actually present for this contract, which is very problematic in our case. In such a scenario, simply like write a test from scratch. Like I'll probably copy some of that stuff here. I'll write some basic tests for the specific scenarios I uncovered. I will try and prove the actual finding that I think I have, and most of the time actually they come out to false positives, which is very hard to overcome, I guess. It's not very fun when you have been thinking over some sort of a idea for a few hours or even a day, and then it turns out to be invalid.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very bad, but most of the time this is what happens. Like 50% of the time, I guess.
Yeah, it sometimes just comes after writing the test, right? Like you think like you see it very obvious. Oh my God, this is happening. Then you write the test, and somehow you see no, actually, it's fine, and it's failing properly, and then life goes on. But yeah, it hurts.
Actually, sometimes even tests don't, like, because if the test has the same assumptions as you, it may even not like provide the needed proof that the finding is false, because you may have set some variables to some unusual value or something. And the invalidation of the finding comes like at a later time when it's judging time, and you see that your assumptions have been broken by someone. It's even harder to overcome that.
Yeah, worth a shot though.
Yeah, definitely. So we've seen that there is a lot of potential ways you can break this contract. There's probably even some stuff that we can do with chaining claim and withdraw in some way.
And what do you like? I don't remember about the issues from this contest, but how about the not checking the transfer, the return of the transfer? Like it's not checking if it's successful or not. Is this?
Yeah, this is another thing that is very usually present on Solid. A lot, like, this is probably the best resource for like learning such I wouldn't say trivial, but like easier to find vectors because they're not complex. I mean, they're very easy to spot. But yeah, definitely it is an issue because what if this fails and you simply don't get your money? I
Yeah,
mean, it's a problem.
yeah. For
Very bad
withdrawal also, yeah.
because it accounted for you getting them. But and then if it's, let's say here it doesn't give you the balance, but it counts the balances, it still has your tokens. So first you lose your money, and then second probably everyone else is going to lose some small amount of money because your tokens are forever in this total supply. So
Yeah.
whenever tokens get updated and accounted for in the protocol, everyone will probably lose a small amount of money depending on what your ratio is compared to the like all the stake tokens present in the contract.
Definitely.
So it's always bad. Like it's bad in multiple ways. But yeah, it's still something very easy to uncover in like a lot of ways. Um, we can also probably like check out what lender is about. From the past two contracts, we know that fees is the fees contract. Essentially, it's only used for selling different tokens that are somehow accrued in the system for ETH. So we can send that ETH to the staking contract here. So we can probably piece our picture up that we have probably lender as the main contract, staking as a mechanism for rewarding stakers, and fees as the contract that is actually going to reward the stakers by transferring tokens to the staking contract. Then we proceed on to the lender contract. We see again that it has a lot of events defined on top, which is kind of overwhelming when you see it at first. We see some basic constants. We see that there's some sort of an interest rate. So this is definitely some sort of a lending protocol, probably. We see some auctions, fees. Then we have some setters, which we don't care much about. We only check whether they have the proper modifiers, and we can probably also like return back to them at some point and check whether they update the variables properly, but we can offload that complexity off of our heads at this point.
Christian, what do you think of the good old only owner issue rates for being the how is that called, the main point of failure, having only
And
one owner and not some roles or some admin?
I mean, it's definitely an issue. The thing is that we need to abide by how the contest platforms see issues, and contest platforms don't see this as an issue just because the clients, which are the protocols that we audit, just want their protocols to be that way. And essentially, the rules are determined by the people who pay for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's definitely an issue. If conducting some other type of audit, it definitely needs to be raised just because it can probably bring a lot of issues. But in contests, we can safely just not care about them that much.
Usually I've seen it mentioned even in the bots race issues, to be fair, like even as a medium. In Code Arena, I mean.
Yeah, it's a medium in a bot race, but not really in a actual contest because sponsors know about those findings, but they don't do anything with them.
Okay.
I mean, they are the people who wrote the contract. They have like power over what happens and what doesn't. We see some get functions again. We can also safely skip them, just because in most contests, for like a value that is untrue from a getter function is low, just because it doesn't like make any other unintended behavior. If it um, provides a false value to some other part of the protocol, it's definitely an issue. But if there is some sort of a issue within those functions, like this external one, it is at most low, just because the only part of the protocol it can mess up is probably the front end, and we don't care that much about it because it cannot uh, like lose material value in some way. Like it cannot directly lead to the loss of money or like break something.
It's impressive the experience that you have with the public contests and what the judges like or dislike or what is accepted or what is low or medium. We can see that you've been through a few for sure.
Yep. Then we can check this function, which is definitely very big. It is for the creation of some sort of a pool, and instantiates the user as the lender. So this is some sort, from what I remember, this is some sort of a peer-to-peer lending platform. So this is the entry point of a user who wants to lend some sort of token to others. They appoint the token that they want to be repaid in, I guess. They have the loan token. They also have some other token, I believe. The collateral token. So this is the instantiation function. There's some basic sanitations like outstanding loan check is I believe to check whether the pool exists in some way. It also checks the balance. Uh, yeah, if we cannot probably this is probably also a update function and not only a instantiation function. So it's checking whether the pool has some depth so that it cannot update it whilst there is depth. Then it does some very basic checks and it transfers more or less tokens to the pool and to the user depending on whatever the criteria is. Then if it's basically emitting created or updated, yeah, so it also updates it and then it's setting it. I mean, it's a very complex function from like it has a lot of if logic, so we can safely skip it for now just because it's complex, but it doesn't have any uh, content to it. Like it isn't the main point of concern in the protocol because it doesn't strictly deal with the money flow of the contract, I guess. We can safely leave this function out for now, just because it's very complex, but there isn't that much money flow into it and out of it. Like it doesn't control the money of the contract directly and how users interact with the money present. So we can probably skip it for now and go down to the meatier portion of the contract. Again, this is some way of the user replenishing some part of the pool balance, I guess, giving more supply to the pool so users can lend more. Again, something that we can probably skip. We can definitely check update pool though, because it may contain some breaking logic. Then we have remove from pool, which is exactly the opposite. Something that happens with some contests is that the getter and not the getter and etc. The two opposite functions like the add and remove or grant and revoke type of functions may have some inconsistencies which bring some unintended behavior, which definitely needs to be checked out. But from like first glance, they don't seem very strange. So again, we can go down for now. Then we see some more set functions, which are they're not like not admin functions, but they're lender only. So they simply change the parameters of a pool based on the lender. And then we go to the main function of the protocol, I guess, the borrow function, which is the way of users to get loans from the pools of others. We see that the logic is encapsulated in a loop, which means that it's made for users to take like multiple loans at once, which is a bit strange. Like, why would you take multiple loans at once? But um, we're not mainly talking about the design of the protocol of findings. Then they're simply getting the destructing the variables from the object. They're getting the contract, and then we have some access control here. They're checking the loan size. They're checking the balance. They are not checking the. Yeah, I believe they are. They are okay. They are.
And Kristian, when you see that loop with the borrows dot length, do you think about a potential DOS attack by the how is that called, by reaching some boundaries, like running out of gas?
In this specific case, maybe not, because the value that we're looping over is provided by the user in the call data. So maybe not in this case, but if the borrows were something that was in the contract storage or that was like updated by others, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. Then we have some basic access control here. And then we are calculating the loan ratio. This is some very strange formula of actually calculating it. We're multiplying the depth by 1e for precision, and then we're dividing by the collateral. Again, this is definitely an issue for like the improper decimal calculation, because the collateral is most certainly not only going to be 18 decimal tokens, or the debt is not going to be an 18 decimal token. But again, this is sort of a very not unique issue, so we can definitely like mark it and be aware of it, but we don't need to think about it that much. It's something present like a lot. Then we see that some sort of a contract struct gets initialized. We see that we're inputting all of the needed params. I don't see anything particularly wrong with it. Then we are calling update pool balance again. This we've seen this function plenty of times again, like over all the functions that we've looked at in the past few minutes. We definitely need to inspect it further. Then we see that we're updating some sort of debt, and we're calculating fees that we're paying to the fee receiver. There is always a fee to the fee receiver, which is a bit strange. And then we are transferring the user the debt minus the fees, which is again a bit of a strange practice, because when you get a loan, you want to get the precise amount and not receive a portion of it, which is again, I don't think it's a issue particularly, but maybe some sort of a design flaw. Then we are transferring the collateral from the user. So again, this is a bit strange that we're giving the user the loan before we are getting the collateral, which again, well, probably everybody has been seeing those CRC 777 reentrancies. You can probably like get the loan, do something with it, and then have the collateral from somewhere. But again, this is sort of a trivial issue, so we don't need to bother with it that much. Then we are down to the repay function. Again, it's mostly we're first calculating the interest, we're getting the pool ID, and again, we're calling the update pool balance. We've seen it so many times that we need to check it before we see anything else. And we see that it's actually very basic. It's only setting the balance of the pool to a new value, which is kind of underwhelming. I thought it's something much more.
Yeah, like some bigger logic or something.
Yeah,
Or some checks.
and maybe we can probably do something with that. Where were we? We're in the repay function, I believe. So yeah, we know that this is just a small set operation. So here it's setting the pool balance plus the debt plus the interest that is owed to the lender. Are we making the user pay that amount? That's the thing. That plus the, yeah, so we are making the user pay that amount. Here we're also transferring a fee from the user to the fee receiver again. So we're not only paying fees when we buy, when we get a loan, but also when we repay it, which is again kind of strange in my opinion. Like, I don't get it completely, but I mean, it's up to the protocol. Then we're transferring the collateral back to the borrower after them successfully repaying the loan, and we're deleting it, so we do not like have some strange behavior where the loan needs to be repaid again or something. So we have a function which is about giving your loans to another pool. So I guess pools with similar tokens probably and similar interests can give essentially make the other pool repay their debt. Not their debt, but like be the loan giver in that specific scenario. So something interesting, I guess. Again, we see that they have it in a loop, which is kind of strange. Then we're getting the loan that we want to give to the other pool. We're checking again some basic access control. we're checking for whether the tokens of each pool match. So we don't like give a loan with some different token to this pool and completely mess up the whole contract. We're also checking for interest rates, lengths, I mean some basic access control. We're also calculating the interest of the loan, which is let us see what it has. So it gets the time elapsed, the time in seconds since the loan was taken. Then we're multiplying it by the amount and by the interest rate, and then we're dividing it by 10,000 and then by 365 days. Why are we dividing it by 10,000 in this case? This is probably because we're using the because of the precision that we're using for the interest rate. It's in how was the unit code? Check. It's in BIPs. So this is some small unit of measurement, so we can be more precise when like giving loans and stuff. An issue that might arise here is that like it's always dividing by 365 days, and I don't know if it's necessarily an issue, but what do we do when we have leap years and stuff like that? This may be another thing to like check and make sure it doesn't like bring any unexpected behavior, uh, which it might. I'm not exactly sure, but definitely something to check out. Then we are giving the fees and the interest that we are like returning by the function. We're simply multiplying the fee by the interest. So we are taking the fee of the lender from the actual interest of the loan. So the lender is in a way paying for this. Then we're again dividing by 10,000, and then we're removing the fee from the interest. Again, we can return back to where we came off of, which was, I believe, this function.
Yeah, like Evelyn. Kristian, I have a question. Like, for instance, in this, since we started, you didn't take a look to the documentation or their website. Like, is it something that you don't usually do? Like, do you jump directly on the code, or sometimes you need to go and figure out what their fees, expectations, or their plan with any logic is, or you just look at the code and try to understand what they want to do through the code?
I usually do take a look at the docs, but this particular project doesn't have some good explanations. Like they have a very small document, I believe, which doesn't explain much. So it's better to go off of the code and try to like figure things out. But if the protocol has a very good documentation, I'll definitely use it. Like, but in this specific case, they don't. So
Yeah, I'm wondering how best or how do you usually find the invariants. So like sometimes they are set on their documentations or some maximum of something, or just some specific feature that they have, or if you get to, or if you just extract them, let's say from their code.
I mostly try and help myself with the docs, because why would you spend the additional time and essentially struggle additionally when you can get all the answers right in front of you? In this specific case, we just cannot do it just because, we don't have any docs in this case.
Yeah. It's just something I used to do that I think it was not the smartest, or at least not the most fruitful. It was to go through more or less, not deeply, but going through the whole docs and then jumping to the code. But somehow it's not necessary. Probably it's usually fine to maybe take a look at the docs and then just jump on the code, and then from time to time jumping back to the docs and checking what the specific feature or function is expected to do. Like, is it something you do as well, or you would actually go first through the docs and then start with the code?
This is exactly what I would do. So I would usually take a small peek at the dogs for like 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how big they are, of course.
Okay.
Maybe even more. I try and familiarize myself with what the base of the protocol is, like what it's trying to do, the abstract of it. Like for this protocol in particular, you try to know that to understand that it's like a peer-to-peer lending protocol, that there's some sort of a fee system, that they have a staking mechanism, essentially the basics. And then when you stumble onto complexity, like let's say this function, you try to guide yourself both by the code and also with the docs. Again, they aren't usually the best in most cases, just because they use some sophisticated terms or something that are not the easiest to understand by everyone. So they are not the best thing to start off with
Yeah.
most times, but they can definitely help if you try and rationalize them a lot, like trying to understand what they mean by what they say.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yep. Um, we move down here. I mean, we're trying to calculate the total debt that the loan has accrued up at this point, and we are then subtracting it from the new pool's balance, and we are adding it to the outstanding loans. A thing that arises in my head at this point is, if someone has a loan that someone else doesn't want to repay, can't they simply shit it to someone else and make them deal with it? Which is a little strange, but again, this is some sort of protocol design, which is again very strange. Um, we can see how they update the outstanding debt and the balance of the other pool. So yes, they essentially offload the loan from one pool and give it to another, and make the other user have to deal with a borrower who doesn't want to repay. Um, then we are sending the fee to the protocol receiver, and we see that. Let's see who actually pays for it. So the new pool pays for the protocol interest, which is probably kind of bad, because you can make the a pool pay a very old debt protocol interest, which is probably going to be big, because it's like 5 to 10% of the interest of the debt. So this is probably a way to make like other protocols, not protocols, but like other pools, to lose some money. Then we're setting the new pool variables, like we're resetting it, we're making it start from now. Then we reset the auction timestamp, and we also add the total debt, which the user is eventually going to need to repay both the debt, the lender interest, and the protocol interest. Something that can be done in this case is for user to create probably like two pools, and constantly, not constantly, but like try and give the loans to the pools, and to try to increase the debt artificially, so that the user can will need to like pay a bigger amount of tokens at the end, which is a little bad, but I guess it can happen, probably. I'm not sure again. Just something that pops up in my head and can probably be exploited with like a little more thoughts going into it. Then we have a start auction function, which is probably to auction out your debt that your borrower doesn't want to repay. So let's say there's some sort of a debt of 50 WEF that the user hasn't paid for like 6 months, and you simply grow tired of it and decide to start an auction of the loan, so you can liquidate their tokens. uh, their collateral tokens. An issue that might arise here is that you can probably like liquidate users at any point just because there isn't any access control on what the ratio needs to be. So a malicious lender can probably liquidate you at any point in time that they want, which is very bad, definitely. Uh, then we see buy loan, which is again just checking for whether the auction has started. It's adding the auction length, and then it's calculating the auction rate. Uh, so the max interest rate is 10. So it's 100%, and time elapsed is essentially the time since the start of the auction. So this means that the way it works is that it becomes more expensive with the more time the loan stays for auction. Then we see that we're calculating interest again. We're calculating the total debt. I believe we're using the same formula as above, so this shouldn't like bring issues, I guess. We're also updating the outstanding loans and the balance again, and we are trying to, not trying to, but basically doing the same thing as in give loan. We're basically uh, subtracting from the outstanding loans of the old pool, and we're adding to the new pool, and then we are subtracting one's balances and lowering the other. Then we're transferring again interest to the protocol, and we're resetting the variable. So this is again very standard, just as the other thing. Then we have some zap buy loan function, which is just creating a pool for us so we can buy out a loan, which is kind of strange. I don't get it. I mean, it doesn't bring a lot of. It's just like making two calls, first to set pool and then to buy loan, so we don't need to like try and rationalize it at this point. And then we have seize loan, which is a way for anyone to seize a loan after a failed refinance auction. Um, so it checks whether the auction timestamp and the auction length, so essentially checks whether the auction has passed. A thing that arises is that so each loan probably has only one auction, and I believe we saw that when you give a loan to another pool, you can reset the auction. So this may be some sort of way of like messing up something by giving a loan to one of your pools that you created with another account. Then we are calculating some governance fees, transferring the tokens to the governance, to the fee receiver actually, but like the same thing. Then we are transferring the collateral tokens to the lender, and we are removing the fee from the lender, which is a bit strange again. We're making the lender pay for the malicious borrower, and we're removing the outstanding debt from the loans of the pool. Uh, I don't completely get how the function works off the bat, just because it's simply allowing the lender to seize the collateral of the user. This is again something related to the thing I talked about a bit before, like regarding how a user, like a lender, might liquidate you. I'm not entirely sure of if it's still standing, but it can probably be done in some way. But again, the function is not very complex, so we can like go down, check whatever else is happening. Again, we have it in a for loop. We're setting the needed variables. We're doing the basic access control here. Um, this is a way for the pool to refinance a loan to a new offer. So it's essentially a way for a borrower to update their loan to new conditions, let's say, and maybe borrow even more or try and repay some debt and to keep their borrow amounts smaller, I guess. So it's checking whether the pool balance is smaller than the debt, which may cause issues because the debt is the new debt of the pool, which may be higher than the old debt, and also the pool balance becomes smaller after a loan gets taken out. So in this case, if there isn't much liquidity in the protocol, there might be a case where a user cannot refinance their debt just because there isn't any additional balance in the protocol, which is kind of strange. Um, then we're checking for the minimum loan size, ratio, the normal stuff. Then we're getting debt to pay. Again, this is the same formula as above, but it has a different name, which is kind of strange. They rename it constantly. There isn't like that much structure into the different formulas used. They simply name them whatever. Then they're doing the same thing with the update pool and the outstanding loans here, updating the balance with the old debt and then adding the new debt. Um, then we get to this very complex piece of logic, which is responsible for how the funds get to and from the contract. We see that if the debt to pay is higher than the debt, we can probably can actually what is this exactly doing? It's transferring additional tokens to the user. So this is the case where the user requests a smaller debt, I guess, like they are lowering their debt. Then this is the opposite, and they are required to pay a fee here, and they are paying it only on the difference that they are taking out as a loan. They're paying the debt, and then they're receiving the additional loan tokens. Um, Here they're paying a borrowing fee, and here they're paying a normal protocol fee, which means that you pay two fees in the case that you want to up your debt. Uh, we see that this is an if this is not an if else loop, but is not an if else statement, but an if else if statement. So we may need to look into what happens if debt to pay is equal to debt. Maybe it simply proceeds and that's it. But the issue is that debt to pay is calculated with the debt, the lender interest, and the protocol interest. So it means that if we don't uh, increase or decrease the debt and we keep it the exact same amount that we owe to the protocol in terms of debt, protocol interest, and the interest itself, we are not allowed, we are not obliged to like pay any fees or debt, which is definitely strange. It might have a rational explanation behind it, but definitely keep that in mind and try to expand on it if there is an actual vulnerability here. Then we are again updating the depth of the protocol. We're doing the same with the collateral. Again, it doesn't check for whether for the case where the collateral is equal to the new collateral, but the collateral doesn't accrue interest on it, and there isn't anything happening with it, so we can like leave it out. Um, and then we see one of the very obvious things in this function, which is that I believe this thing here, the pool balance, gets set right here, and it also gets set here, which means that we're removing the balance of the user twice, which is something very bad and very easy to see in the function, but it's definitely a very critical thing because
Yeah.
when you update your loan, you remove twice the amount from the pool.
Yeah, that's definitely big.
Yeah. So this is definitely a vulnerability. Again, it's a little easier to spot, but it's something very bad. So keep that in mind. Then we come to the end of the contract and we see the functions that we examined a bit before. Again, I'm still a little concerned with how it only thinks of a year as 365 days. But again, it can just be a false concern here. Then, after checking out all of those functions one by one, the way we did, a thing that definitely needs to be done is for me to try and mix and match all of those functions. I usually try and do that with testing. Then, after checking out all of those functions one by one, the way we did, a thing that definitely needs to be done is for me to try and mix and match all of those functions. I usually try and do that with testing. Uh, in the case of the lender contract, we have a small testing suite here. So I'll simply make a new test. I'll make a new test. Um, and simply try and mix and match the functions. I will first like run them one by one with some uh, predetermined outcomes. Like I will simply get one of the scenarios from here, like the repay scenario. I'll copy it. I'll see what it spits out when it's by itself, and then I'll try and mix it with something else and see whether it breaks that way. I'll also try and think for like some edge case scenarios that may pop up. Let's say that there is some case where we don't need to pay fees or something like that. We definitely need to check mainly the if statements because they're usually the most problematic, like false assumptions. But this is like the main stuff I do when like checking the functions one by one and then trying to mix and match them. And after this phase ends, in a sense, I try and mix all of the contracts that interact with each other. So we have the staking contract here. I believe we're not referencing it, or are we?
Kristian, would you also try to make some like usually would you do a diagram or would you benefit from doing that or you don't usually do them? Like,
I don't use diagramming tools, but I do have a whiteboard on my wall that I do everything on. This is
Okay.
definitely something very useful, uh, but it largely depends on the protocol. Because let's say if it's this size, yes, I will definitely make a diagram for it, and I will like try and map all the functions of the contracts, like the ones that actually do stuff with value. But if it's something very, very big, I would limit myself to uh, pieces of logic and not to like the whole system, just because it may take too much time for what it will bring.
Yeah, and how about the static analysis tools like Mithril or Slither? Do you
Uh,
make use of them?
No, I do not. I mainly rely on like writing dump tests in Foundry or Hard Hat, depending on what they have, and to manual review. Because you will not extract that much value from using machines as well, at least from what I've seen. Uh, a very important thing that needs to happen right after like checking all of the functions one by one and like mixing them inside of the contract is for us to try and look at the big picture and see how this contract, for example, integrates with the fees contract, which then integrates with the staking contract. From what I got, the fee receiver contract right here is the fees contract right here. So whenever we send tokens to the fee receiver, we're actually sending them to this contract, and we can see that this has no access control. So tokens can be sent to the fee receiver and then to the staking contract without any notice or control. So the scenario for like extracting value um, right before a token deposit to the staking contract happens is very real. I mean, we can basically coordinate whenever tokens enter the staking contract, just because we can call this thing whenever we want. So this is definitely a concern, and sort of a vector that we can look at. We can also try and see like whether any other external factors would influence the lender contract, because it has like the most meat to it. We know that the tokens that we are going to borrow on the loan, like the tokens that we are going to loan out and the tokens that are going to be used as collateral, are going to be basically arbitrary. So we need to think again about the owed fee on transfer issue and the rebasing tokens, because they're definitely very real in this case, because there isn't any basically safety when interacting with them in this case.
Yeah, that's looking so good until now, Christian. That's amazing. I mean, the way you approach this, the way you analyze it, it's. I mean, yeah, I think there's so much gold there. There's so many advices, and yeah, it's super interesting to see you going through this. There is just this question I wanted to ask, because I mean, you are super confident going through this. I don't know if it's because you've already gone through it, or because you just well you are obviously very good at it. So what I'm wondering is what happens when you actually are going through some part, some piece of code, some line, some logic that you're lost, that you just don't understand. Like there's a part, there's I don't know some math there, or something that you don't understand. What is your go-to tool, or person, or what do you do? Because it's something, well, that it happens, that it's common, and I'm interested. I'm curious how is it that you approach that situation, or if you have any situation like that often, or what did you do at the beginning when you were facing more often those cases?
Uh, Everyone has a lot of those situations. It's completely normal to not know something. And there's a few things that you can do. The first thing is to reference the code's documentation. This is the first thing that you need to do. If it doesn't contain a satisfying answer, just go. Don't be afraid and ask the protocol team, either in the public channel of the contest, or in a DM or something. Try and not waste their time, of course. Have like some very concise questions. Be thorough in what you need to and want to know, and don't waste their time. Try to be as
Precise, maybe
thorough.
accurate, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just try and do that. If that doesn't work as well, also maybe try and leave the issue for a bit. Maybe research it, but if it isn't something particularly widely available, like let's say some solidity concept or something, just go take a walk, return back, and you may have the answer just by leaving it for a bit. This is another thing that you can do. You can also probably ask fellow researchers if they know about a specific thing, but with contests it's a little different because everyone can steal each other's findings. So
Yeah.
try to be as abstract as you can if you don't want to get duplicated.
I'm wondering how many of those people that were on Twitter raising a kind of CTF, that maybe it was a doubt that they had, and they asked someone to they asked people to find the bug, and then they would probably not, but anyways. But yeah, thanks for that. It's actually true that the developers are always, or are supposed to always be there, but of course you need to go with some concrete, something specific. Okay, thank you, Christian. So how about you show us a bit of the findings that you raised? Uh, if I don't remember, if I don't remember wrongly, I think you got around 1,000 ish dollars from that. So it would be interesting, after seeing your analysis, what was the most well, the valid issues that you raised, and where is the money? Like, let's see what issues are the ones that are rewarded properly.
Let me share it. Yeah, so this is all of the issues that I submitted to the contest.
It's a lot of highs.
So I've got like 4 that didn't get validated at the end.
Okay.
And yeah, it seems like a lot of highs, but most of them didn't actually bring a lot of money. You see in a little bit. Again, the issues that are present here, we can see the thing that we talked about in the fees. This is that it's only trading in the 0.3% fee pool.
Nice.
And it got us 55 cents. As I said, it isn't worth your time.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a type of issue that people just don't need to bother reporting, because it probably took me much more than a minute to write. And as you can see, it didn't yield me almost any money, so why bother? And this is some sort of a medium that got downgraded, I believe. And again, we've got 30 cents for it. We've also got a selected for report, which got us a grand total of $11.
Yay.
But those are not as interesting. Like, again, I talked about lower decimals. And we see that it generated not that big of an amount of money, but it's still okay for the time it took me to write it. But it's still not very substantial. Then we can skip those two because they didn't get paid. We can restart the loans period. Again, the thing that I mentioned before, it got us another $40. Again, not substantial, but it's fine. Then I believe this was a solo medium, which was talking about the malicious pool creation or something. We've got 400 of it, which is fine, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing was not that like trivial, but it was sort of present in. I mean, a lot of people already know about it, but it still got rewarded with kind of a good amount of money for what it is. Then we've got, again, the router doesn't get approved. This is one of the very dumb highs that I didn't even need to bother reporting. And we can see that it got us only $9. It took me probably like 30 minutes to write out, so not very useful. Slippage, sandwich attacks. Yeah, this is what the unspecified slippage finding yield you. A grand total of less than $1, of less than a cent actually.
I was so happy when I raised I think I didn't raise as many high as you definitely, but I raised a few and I was so happy that I'm like, oh my god, probably they are very, very easy to see, but oh my god, yeah, I'm raising a few highs. That's so cool. But yeah, and that's what you're saying. It's kind of visible and common to raise.
This had like 200 duplicates, I believe.
Wow.
So very bad. Bachelor, what is this? I'm sorry, just a sec. Holy shit.
No worries.
What the hell is happening?
Take some water.
Fucking COVID, man.
COVID?
I believe so, yeah.
Damn. You've been affected? Or you're sick now?
No, this is like the fifth time I go through it.
Damn.
Oh shit, my voice changed, just a second. Holy shit. I'm better now.
Okay.
Yeah. So batch share accounting allows for sandwich attacks when what gets filled in as a reward for stakers. This is the one that I was talking about, like MEVing the what reward mechanism, and it got $100, which is definitely good. Then we get WEF deposited before the contract gets any stake tokens can get permanently locked. Again, this is the way they're doing the share accounting. And we got $900 for it. This is, I believe, one of the higher paying highs. I believe it had like 2 or 3 duplicates. It actually had 2 duplicates. With me and Bernd, the guy that got first place. Then we got. I essentially had three findings that were self duplicates of one another, like this one, and this one, which uh, got kind of. I mean, the judging was kind of strange on them, and also the fact that they were self duplicates of each other was kind of broke the way that the reward mechanism works and the way that the report mechanism works. So they like we hit some sort of an edge case with the reward calculation bot that they had in place. Then we've got this one, which got $135, and this one got $0 as well. So we've got those three, those here that don't bring almost any money. I mean, those are again the ones that got. This is, for example, the one that is about the debt getting subtracted twice,
Oh, yeah.
and it got 20 cents. So it's not worth your time, essentially.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Then we get that the collateral ratio doesn't get checked when buying an auction loan. This one got like a good amount of money for it. I mean, it's a simple check, I believe, that needed to be put in place so that a loan cannot be taken in some scenario. And then we got loan ratio lacks precision for pairs of flow decimal tokens, and we got $3 for it. Again, the issues regarding decimals and like different tokens and Uniswap, I mean, they're very trivial and people don't pay that much for them. So the things that pay the most money, as you saw, are issues like this one that are directly tackling the internal balances and logic of the contract, like the business logic of the contract itself,
Yeah.
and not like things that you can basically probably even pattern match. I mean, you can definitely still get some sort of small reward for them. Like you can probably get a few $100 if you do it on a contest with a lot of lines of code. But I don't see it as something profitable that is worth your time if you want to like find bugs constantly.
Okay, nice, Kristian. Wow, I think well, for everyone that wants to know more about those bugs, they are meant to be public, so you can check the report on Code Hacks. But yeah, okay. So I think you've been super helpful. So thanks a lot for doing this. I think yeah, I think this is going to be very useful. Like not having anymore just asking people for what are they approach, but actually going through this. Not simulating it because we were actually reviewing it and analyzing, but yeah, going through the audit, like what they call the shadow audit, it's super useful for everyone actually, because it's interesting to see the different way of approaching, and actually what I found interesting, the fact and true, the fact that you're saying that maybe don't lose that much time when you run a public contest when you see something that it's very obvious, because it's most likely not going to be paid off, and if you need to lose so much time with it, then it might not be worth it, unless you don't find anything else, and it would always make you feel better probably. But yeah, I mean, thanks a lot. Well, everyone knows that knows you, and those that don't, then I will leave your link to your Twitter. But everyone knows that you're performing amazing, and you're super useful for. You're super useful. You're very like there's a lot of value on your content. I'm aware that you're trying to bring even more, and there's for sure more coming, as I heard. So yeah, thanks a lot, and I appreciate a lot your time with this. So yeah, so to everyone, thanks for watching this, and yeah, if you like it, then of course like the video, subscribe, because I'm planning to have this kind of videos updated more often, because I find this very useful for you guys. Okay, so take care,
It was my
guys.
pleasure. Thank you.
And thanks, Kristian. Bye. Okay.